Jasper and the Shelter of Angels.
Book 1.
Prologue. The eyes of the dark creature twitched with the intention to maim. Its sharp teeth were revealed behind curled lips like unsheathed swords. Lunging forward, it spread its claws and took hold of the grand angel Shelton. Such a spectacle of awesome magnificence was this towering form. His spiritual shape, vaguely human, was clearly superior. Shelton was quick to retaliate as he sunk his two swords deep into the demon's torso, shouting, "May your heart know what it is to gleam this day like all the stars shining as one with such intense brilliance as found only in heaven." While the colossal angel Shelton said this, darkness expelled off the dark demon like a festering smoke. Its claws shredded the angel's armor, its teeth bitten deep into the mighty protector. Now, what happened next? A teacher next to a lake was about to bring his lesson to a close, but he expected an answer. The teacher looked like a young man of Israeli descent. He wore loosely fitting pants with a shirt made of woven cotton. He stood before his 7 students, of whom were equally as young. Teacher Stephen, called the young boy Wilson. The grand angel Shelton could call for support from his friends, could he not? He treacherously but carefully tested his instructor. "Very good, Wilson. That is a possibility," Stephen answered kindly. A young girl with long strawberry blonde hair shot her hand up and answered, "If I were the grand angel, I'd call on the power of the Lord to send a blast of glorified light at the demon," answered Taylor. Then she lowered her hand. "And with such glorified light, you'd purge yourself of the beast's venomous bite?" the teacher asked her, eyebrows raised. "Of course, Teacher Stephen," she smiled sheepishly. Taylor's name meant Golden Dawn. In the sunlight, it was clear by the way her strawberry blonde hair lit up along with her young and beautiful complexion. She was flawlessly named. "I'd cast the holy fires of Shelton's sword upon the beast while his blade was still within it," came Joel's outburst of exuberant excitement. The teacher turned to Joel. "And what would you speak, Joel?" "I'd say, 'Behold, demon, the sound of your roars and the destruction of your rage will be heard no more," Joel answered without hesitation. His voice was like quicksilver. The other students were anxious to tell their teacher what they would do in the grand angel's place, but Stephen told them, "I'm sorry to have to cut our lesson short today. I know each one of you have marvelous answers for today's question, but I have to be on my way." Walking by each of the students, Teacher Stephen handed each one a golden envelope. Each of the envelopes were marked with a student's name: Joel, Alana, Charmatrian, Star, West, Taylor, and Wilson. "Thank you, teacher." Each one spoke when they were handed an envelope. "You'll have to open them on your own time. I have to get going. Congratulations to you all. You've all been brilliant students and good personal friends." Waving his departure, Teacher Stephen turned and sauntered away along a path next to a lake. Before he was too far away, Alana called out to him, "Teacher, before you go, what did the angel Shelton do to defeat the demon?" Teacher Stephen raised his voice and resolutely said, "There has been much speculation concerning Grand Angel Shelton. As it stands, he went missing and no one is certain where he is." He gestured, shrugging his transparent shoulders. With that, the students huddled together and spoke excitedly among one another. Walking in the opposite direction from their devout and caring teacher, the students also followed the path. Beside the path, the lake drained to a trickling brook for a short distance before it drained over a sheer cliff's edge to a long waterfall that fell many miles straight down. The young people stood dangerously close to the edge, Fearlessly, they admired the spectacular view. Rolling hills far below basked in the daylight as far as their eyes could see. Joel called, "Hey, why don't we crack these envelopes open right now?" His cobalt eyes gleamed. "I agree. I'll go first," answered West with a voice of melody. "That's not fair," Joel protested, smiling like the sun. "We do it together then," saluted Wilson as he tore his envelope open. They all followed suit, unsealing their envelopes. "This news will concern each one of us," Wilson added with a hint of warning in his tone. The document within each one was identical. It was a certificate that declared they had all been accepted into the service of shepherding humans. Trematrian slid out his certificate and read, "To your exemplary capabilities, you shall be rewarded to serve in our contributions to marshalling the people." His deep baritone voice was freed from his wide chest. Alana's soft voice rose like the call of a bird. "We've worked so hard for this and for so long. Remember when it was nothing more than a dream of ours?" The tall young woman enjoyed the wind as it blew through her white blonde hair. She stepped to the edge of the cliff with a white dove perched on her shoulder. Then she said, "I'm releasing this dove to commemorate our future. Let the winds guide our freedom as it does this dove." Star's bold voice faded out eloquently. Then she released the dove to the sky, and it fluttered from their height toward the valley below. "Hear, hear," came the strong male response from Joel, West, Trematrian, and Wilson in unison. Happy for the news of their certificates, they congratulated each other. Joel slapped Alana on her back and commemoratively said, "What great news! I'm so proud of you." The slap seemed friendly enough, but it also caused Alana to lose her balance and fall over the edge. She giggled and said, "Be careful, Joel, I could have fallen." The others didn't see any danger. They just laughed in their carefree adolescent manner. So often had they chuckled in the face of danger. "Oh, like this?" Joel gave Alana a full arm extension shove. Alana's mouth opened and her eyes went wide as she stretched her arms out to be saved, but she just dropped right over. The 5 remaining friends gathered together at the edge and craned their necks to watch their companion as she fell. Alana giggled and laughed as she shrank into the distance. Straining their eyes to look closer, wings promptly sprang from their fallen friend's back and began to flap. Such a majestic spectacle carried Alana safely out past the dove that was set free just moments ago. Unexpectedly, the large young man, West, came up with a plan even more daring than Joel's. Stretching out his arms, he tackled the entire group of students over the edge. They all fell in a mess of sprawling arms and legs. Scrambling vigorously to hold on to something, they grabbed and pushed at one another. Though they intended to prevent themselves from plunging over the edge, they soon realized the inevitable was also the unavoidable. One by one, wings exploded from their backs and they began to laugh and fly effortlessly in intersecting circles. A light shone from the horizon and lit up the sky. The light came not from a sun nor a star, like it might on some other world. The source of this light emanated from the very throne of the living creator of all things. He was surrounded in a rainbow ring of light and colors. A field of light also surrounded him. Because the origin of the light was the pure energy of love, it didn't hurt their eyes. Radiating from the being who sat in the throne, the energy of love filled the land completely and penetrated every shadow. At their distance, and because of the great light, the throne was barely visible. Above the throne were 4 living creatures, the seraphim. Surrounded by a spacious open court, the throne raised up had water pouring out from the bottom of it in cascading waterfalls running down each of the 4 sides. Around the open court were tall walls built at the sides of the temple of pure gold like transparent glass. Beyond the temple were rolling hills of smaller temples and places of worship, and even further out, from them was a great holy city. As striking and powerful as the light was, it remained gentle on their eyes. The group peered around, their faces glowing joyously. Turning his head to look at Star with his big brown caring eyes, Joel confirmed the solidarity of their friendship. Smiling back at him with something of a playfulness in her eyes, Star couldn't contain a small giggle. Her stark blonde hair was pressed back at the sides with beads that looked like dewdrops lining a spider's web. Unable to contain his smile nor his excitement, Joel stretched out his wide, chiseled wingspan and glided upward. Changing course, he rolled into a lazy turn, then gallantly and gracefully punched through the clouds. With bushy brown hair and sideburns, Joel wore a shimmering breastplate of armor on his chest. Mounted to the center of it was the front half of a golden crown. On his left forearm, Joel wore a silver gauntlet. His silk tights were a soft green. Dark brown boots rose up above his knee line and brimmed with a large fold. Meanwhile, Star beamed with a knowing smile as she glided amongst the others. She was tall, statuesque, and arrayed in heavenly glory. Then she turned to the others. "We'll be right back." With a bold visage, she dashed into the distance in pursuit of Joel. Her white feathery wings were quite similar to his, only fluffier, feminine, sleek, and softer. The two friends streaked through the sky with no limits to the speed of their desire. Star came within arm's reach of Joel. Smiling at Star with a mouth of perfect teeth, Joel playfully teased his friend. Star, for her part, hadn't yet stopped smiling. For a moment, they flew in unison. Then, Star surprised Joel, reaching out and slapping him on his shoulders lightly. "Tag!" Star shouted spiritedly. "You're it!" She teased him back as her eyes sparkled like light blue diamonds. Joel laughed as he delved into a bouncy, good-natured sport of amusement and tumbled through the air. Jokingly, he acted like he used too much strength. Making some distance from Joel, Star smiled and bolted from him. She knew his sense of humor all too well, which made it easier for her to tease him. Star, an athletic youth with very light blonde wavy locks of hair, wore a short skin-tight underdress. On top of this, Star's outfit was primarily a thin see-through fabric that floated over her body loosely and moved as though it had its own realm of gravity. She didn't wear any other items except for the small white flowers in a couple of thin braids tied back in her hair. Where they came from, it wasn't popular to wear shoes or jewelry or makeup. Regardless of this, her natural beauty was so prominent, anything more wasn't needed. The smile dropped from Joel's face as he focused, before launching from his position and darting toward Star. The both of them picked up enough speed to whistle out of the sky as they streaked toward the ground. Star headed for the southern boundary of Heaven's Gate. They descended like missiles, but at the last millisecond they flared their great wings, breaking out of their speedy decline so their feet lightly touched the ground. It was a beautiful setting with lush green foliage of growth surrounding them. Star ran to the foundation of the massive gate, where she'd unknowingly disturbed a group of about 20 cherubim who were lounging there. The cherubs looked like small children, every one of them. They wore very little in the way of clothing, but they were the most innocent and perfect children. Each one had many differences by the way of hair color, skin color, and character expressions. Despite the small wings at their backs, they had no problems fluttering about. This wasn't more evident than when Joel came blundering out of the forest behind Star. The cherubs lifted from the area and flew off like a flock of birds down the road, back through the valley to the holy city. They were more precious than rubies or diamonds. "Gotcha!" Joel announced when he came up behind Star and gripped her shoulders. Star hardly flinched because she was captivated by the beauty of the southern gate. Joel noticed this and took a step to Star's side. Together they looked in awe as they tried to drink in the awesome magnificence. Of course they had visited the gates many times before, but seeing the spectacle again was no less captivating and tranquil as the first time their celestial eyes gazed on its beauty. The gate itself was a great pearl harnessed in a masterpiece of golden artistry. When an oyster is wounded, it creates a pearl. In this symbolic way, the wounds inflicted upon the Son of God are represented in each great gate of heaven. Embedded in the rich golden designs were gems of many colors. The gems encompassed a power of some sort, causing them to glow with a life of their own. The gate marked a way through the tall, impenetrable wall that surrounded the entire land of the great city of heaven. Then Joel broke the silence and uttered, "Thousands of years ago, I tried to open some of these big gates, but they are so sturdy and solid. They couldn't be budged." "Why did you try to open a gate?" Star mediated. "Did you want to leave?" "Oh no, I was merely curious and saw it as a challenge." With an astounding leap, Joel glided away from Star to the gate, slowly curling his fingers around the silver and gold workmanship that intricately laced the gems within. He gave a little push. The sound of a heavy latch clicked and echoed off into the distance. Then the entirety of the enormous gate jarred loose. It was so large the gate looked like a continent on hinges and parted at a vertical angle. Joel let go of the gate immediately and quickly turned back to look at Star. His eyes grew as wide as halos with amazement. The bolted brazen gate yawned open, slowly on protesting hinges. The sound was a howl alerting all to the breach. Wonderment and confusion spoke from Joel's tense eyes. He didn't expect the gate to react. The gate, now slightly open. This wasn't supposed to be possible, he marveled with amazement. Simultaneously, Joel and Star took a deep breath. Anticipation gripped them both. Each of their 4 eyes were supposed to be locked at all times. For this gate to be open was a mystery. "Is evil at work here?" Joel inquired. "No, it is impossible for any detail to escape the Lord's notice. Everything has meaning and purpose. All things happen for a reason," Star answered her friend. Taking a step away from the gate, Joel couldn't stop looking at it. Star stepped up behind him and placed her gentle, luminescent hands on his shoulders. The gate was still closed for the most part. Solid and beautiful, perhaps their eyes deceive them. Perhaps it's not really open. You and I are mistaken. Star shrugged. "But the gap!" Joel shook his head. "Oh, yes, you must be right." Laughing, Joel lowered his head as he swung around to look at Star. She also laughed at their foolishness. Joel wanted to confirm their silly misunderstanding as he stepped up to the gate once more and gave it a hearty push. This time the sound of the hinges could not be heard, for the baritone horns of heaven's defenses sounded even louder. The great gate swung open wide, and Joel stood looking out to the wondrous world beyond. Mesmerized by what he could see, Joel found himself petrified. His perfect facial features were framed in the holy luminescent power of God's love. A sound arose from the darkness beyond. It was a shriek of madness, followed by a deep growling of demon creatures of unfathomable depravity and utter decadence. Then, like a sudden swarm of locusts was upon them, the demons of countless numbers attacked through the gate. Double their number arrived to meet them as silver and gold angels drove them back out of the gate. Still, this was barely enough. The demons were innumerable and threatened to force their intrusive ways in. Then the flaming sword arrived and was set in place by God at the gate. The massive golden blade struck with such force and speed the demons could do nothing to drive it back. Meanwhile, outside the open gate, the battling demons continued to rage on, trying numerous tactics to gain entry. "Joel, stay here. I'll get the others. Wilson will know what to do." With that said, Star shot away into the sky in a dazzling streak of light. Like a bolt of white light, Star returned to the lake only to discover all of her friends had already ventured elsewhere. Tracking where they went, Star flew to the heart of the great holy city of heaven. The aura surrounding Star was much like the aura of the city, only vastly smaller in scale. Flying into the heart of the great city, Star found everyone was moving quickly to either take up arms and join the fight to drive back the demons or make preparations to fortify the holy city. Below her, she caught sight of her friends, Alana and Taylor. They were busy guiding and directing about 50 of the scared cherubims to the safety of a nearby sanctuary along the Street of Gold. Star landed in the midst of them and helped to herd them all inside. After they closed the tall double doors, the three of them stood together. Alana still cradled a cherub in her arms. The winged infant wailed and cried with fear. Star's two friends were busy tickling him under his chin, saying, "Coochie coochie!" They were doing all they could to calm the little soul. Finally, Star tapped them on the shoulder from behind. Her icy blue eyes were full of urgency and seemed capable of freezing time. Her friends had never seen Star so worked up this way before. What could possibly affect her so? Alana contemplated. What could be the problem? Taylor asked, though she openly didn't believe there could be a problem at all. Least of all here in heaven. It sounds like we're at war. With such a youthful complexion, Taylor flipped her strawberry blonde hair. Dressed in a one-piece leather white wash outfit, her V-cut at the front of her dress was composed of an aura that surrounded her like a loose second layer of dress. This covered her like a cloud in constant motion. Taylor was such a comfortable and carefree presence that could put the most callous soul at ease. She also wore leather boots that rose up almost to her knees, along with matching forearm bands that had tassels dangling off the cuffs. "It's Joel," Star told her two friends. "He pushed the southern gate and it opened right up." "He did what?" Alana asked as she pursed her full red lips. A breeze caught her long dark hair, but no matter how her hair fell, each strand returned to a rightful place of perfection. She peered at Star with a newfound intensity in her large green eyes. Wearing white jean shorts with a large shimmering belt buckle and a white sleeveless t-shirt under a light blue vest, Alana floated weightlessly and ready to counsel her friend. It was all about giving from the goodness of her heart, and she did it with style. Her warm, gracious presence was as welcome as her white cowgirl hat and boots. Sparks of light gleamed from the silver bullwhip wound at her hip. "Demons are trying desperately to invade our holy domain. That's what all the chaos is about." Then Star repeated, "Joel opened the southern gate." "Why would he do that?" Taylor asked, but she was cut short when Alana countered her question. "Where's he now?" Star looked at Taylor, then to Alana. An anxious drive to do something twitched in her eyes. "He's still there, at the southern gate." Star informed her two friends immediately, an impressive wingspan sprang from Alana's shoulder blades as she darted away so fast it looked like she just vanished before their eyes. The cherubim, who was nestled warmly in Alana's arms, remained floating in the air weightlessly for a moment. Soon, it lazily unfolded from its cradle sleep with wings flapping like a hummingbird. As it stretched with a sleepy yawn, so too did its wings that were as soft as angora. Disappearing in much the same way, Taylor also flew off to her friend Joel. The cherubim looked at Star with a sleepy expression and rubbed its drowsy eyes. Star reached out and held the cherubim's small infant hands. "You've got to send a message to the Tri-Guardians for me." The cherubim became alert, nodding its head to her. "Tell them that the southern gate has been opened. The one who opened the gate is waiting for them there." Star released the hands of the cherubim, and in mid-flight it smiled widely before it flew away in careless, casual arcs. Now, Star thought to herself, where will I find the rest of the seven? Countless angels charged in at the multitude of demons. The celestial warriors were clad in shimmering armor, They wielded mirrored double-edged swords with blades so sharp even a razor's edge could seem dull in comparison. Their shields were weightless and impenetrable. When a demon came in contact with them, they were repelled great distances. The bows of the angel protectors retaliated the negatively charged black arrows launched by the attacking demons. Though the angels proved they could hold off the demon masses equally as well as the gate could, it wasn't a job they particularly wanted for the rest of eternity. The horrific demons were dark, shadowy, and spiky. They were so energetic with such desperation they gnashed at the angels with sharp, pointy teeth. The weapons of the enemy were forged of blackened bones, and they utilized them with such hostility and cruel madness. There seemed to be moments when their fervent fierceness might actually succeed at entering the holy realm of heaven. A separate task force of angels worked to reseal the southern gate. Amongst these brave heroes were Wilson, West, and Charmatrian. They were virtually undetectable behind the open gate. As an added precaution, they dumped buckets of aurora oil on the massive golden hinges. The three boys wore only white shorts as they had been playing on a beach together just moments before. In West's mind, the situation would never be catastrophic, for evil had no power in heaven. It was a rule or law of their spiritual reality. Emergencies were a rare thing in the holy city. West's thoughts never left the beach. He fully believed the situation would correct itself and they would be right back where the sand was soft, white, and powdery under his feet. Daydreaming, West presumptuously imagined he was back where other souls also occupied the endless shore, and not one of them had a clue about the urgency Star carried in her heart. As the angelic boys worked at pushing the enormous gate, beams of heavenly glory penetrated their translucent forms. Their gallant white wings flared and fluttered with the speed of a hummingbird. The strong young angels pushed the southern gate and it began to close. They rarely noticed Star appear before them, waving her arms for the boys to take notice of her and stop. Star shouted, "Hey!" She grabbed the attention of her male companions and quickly explained that the southern gate had been opened by Joel. Charmatrian and West began to chuckle. They had grown accustomed to all things being one big joke, but Wilson recognized the seriousness in Star's eyes. Looking at how hard the other more experienced angels worked, he began to fathom the urgency of the situation. Looking at the others with his short hair and long bangs combed to one side, Wilson snapped his fingers. He smiled instantly, disappeared from Charmatrian and West, and suddenly they were dressed in their appropriate attire. Instantly and equally, the angelic young men paid attention to Wilson and Star. In the blink of an eye, they were all ready to go and assist their friend Joel. The Lord saw Wilson as a leader, so the others simply respected him as such. Contrary to this title, he was quite humble and thinly framed, but when he called for his armor to collect on him, his stature became much larger. Usually Wilson was the quiet one, slow to a temper just like he was to his laughter. The tight curls of Charmatrian's dark hair resembled a young Michael Jackson. None of the angels had skin or any such skin color, but Charmatrian's wide nose and full lips gave him an exotic Nigerian complexion. Charmatrian's bold and chiseled features were usually relaxed, but when he heard of such a momentous event happening to one of his friends, he tightened it and stood ready to assist. Charmatrian wore a simple, muscle-revealing white t-shirt with a long leather necklace that had a golden coin dangling from it. His simple attire with light blue pants and dark leather shoes made his wide black belt and huge gold buckle stand out as a focal point. His belt buckle was of an angel with lightning bolts for wings, and the design was finished with black, gold, and silver. West was the tallest of the group and well built. His loosely fitted shirt was open at the chest and tucked in tight at the waist. His long blonde hair and striking blue eyes carried a sense of warmth and boldness with him. Star couldn't wait, knowing her closest friends were at the mysterious open south gate with Joel. She headed off in a streak of speed to join them. In an instant explosion of white cloud, the boys were fully dressed. Propelling into the sky toward the southern gate, the boys raced to aid their friend. Amongst the striking colors of the garden, sitting on a rock with his elbows to his knee and his fist to his chin, Joel was in a deep thought, staring at the chaos of warfare at the open southern gate. One by one, his 7 angel companions arrived. As they first began to appear, it looked like they were dressed in striking garments of lightning. First, Alana appeared in an urgent flash of brightness. She looked at Joel and took a step toward him, but the sight of the open gate stopped her in mid-stride. The battle of good and evil was a complicated mix of violent thralls. Behind Alana, Taylor arrived. Shortly after, Wilson, Charmatrian, and West accompanied them. When Star appeared, she immediately noticed Joel on the rock and went to him. He was looking away upward at the conflict he was responsible for. The violence was a foreign affair of heaven, yet it continued to pump, filling the wide open space of the gate. The others also gazed at the mayhem with Joel. They all seemed to share his guilt. Such a sight of misery enraptured their hearts like a snare. Before anyone else muttered a word, Joel said, "Wilson, do you think this will anger the Lord?" I'm sure there's a perfectly good explanation for what's happening here," Wilson replied calmly. But the shrill, distant cries of both angel and demon seemed to seal their doom in the eyes of their creator. "Let's go back to the city and bring this matter before the Lord." Star quickly spoke. "I have already sent news of this to the Tri-Guardians. Should we not stay here and wait for them to arrive?" "What did you see on the other side of the gate, Joel?" West asked, craning his head to get a better view past the fray of fighting and clashing. "It's not easy to tell. I've never seen anything like it before, but there's definitely something. Like you, I haven't ever been outside these fortified walls. What I did see, though, was like some other far-off world," Joel answered, though his mind seemed to be so distracted and many miles away. "You were looking through a rift. When a gate is opened, a dimensional gateway to another world is also opened," explained Wilson, like this was a lesson of the day. "You probably saw Earth." The girls took a step forward in one accord as their curiosity called to them. "Can you see Earth?" Alana stepped up behind West, elevating on her tiptoes, and leaned forward to peek through the gate better. With a smile and sparkling green eyes, Alana added, "Why don't we just get close enough to take a look? I mean, the Tri-Guardians will be here any moment." The friends looked at one another before they began to smile with delight at the suggestion. They had wanted to see Earth for a very long time, and such a notion had dominated many of their conversations and dreams. Grouping themselves together with Joel in front, they cautiously took a stealthy step closer, then another. Before they knew it, the 7 young angels looked up to find they were under the wrangle of battle blows and quarrelsome strife. The warriors struggling at the boundary of the open gate seemed to stretch upward infinitely. At the front line of the gate's threshold, demons began to swoop down at them. The 7 armed themselves. Wilson took the lead naturally. His hands lit up with bright white flames as he began to throw bleached, blazing fireballs which effectively began to drive the demon horde back. But it wasn't enough. Gracing his efforts, his companions also stepped up with him. Star wielded her remarkable pearl-bladed sword while she called forth a flock of bright, pure doves. The blissful birds seemed to blind the demons and discourage them from further approach. Taylor had 4-foot-long sword blades extended out of each of her top wing knuckles. Her wings moved with extraordinary agility and strength, which enabled the double-edged blades of her swords to slash and reach better than they would if held in the palms of her dainty hands. The great span of her wings doubled as shields to protect her from the incoming arrows of the dark agents. As she fought, she showed her love through the golden morning light emitted from every extremity of her striking yet exquisite figure. Wes took hold of his long-handled sledgehammer. Extending the handle of his condemnatory hammer, he twirled it expertly like it was a heavy-ended shaft. Each strike he landed against the attacking angels sent them sprawling thousands of miles into the depths of the disparagingly darkness beyond. Charmatrian gripped the hilt of his water blade swords and twirled them expertly. The holy water of his swords were like fire to the demons, and perhaps the most effective weapon the seven were in possession of against such evil. Joel let his arrows of light fly from his golden bow. Alana lashed out with her silver bullwhip that always ended with a predominant crack and a slew of spectacular sparks. "Let us not cross the entrance of the gate, agreed?" Wilson said, being the voice of caution. "Of course," they agreed, peering to the other side of the open gate as it became clear that the distant world on the other side was Earth. This was a mysterious realm of wonder to them, according to the many tales they had studied and dreamt of throughout the years. Looking harder at one time, they used their ability of telescopic vision to see Earthlings living their day-to-day lives. The swirling mouth of the spiritual firmament distorted their vision and made it considerably harder to see. "It doesn't appear to be as terrible as we were led to believe, does it?" Taylor asked her friends. The seven worked fervently to protect one another so they could all get the best view possible before the Tri-Guardians arrived. "I'd like to get a better view," Charmatrian said as he leaned forward, straining his eyes. "Look," Wes said, pointing to the ground at the other side of the open gate. "The ground ends abruptly at the cliff beyond the opening of the gate's perimeter. Perhaps if we stand just a little closer at the cliff's edge, we will be beyond the firmament's distortions so we can see better." "Just to there," Star agreed, cutting a line into the ground with the tip of her pearl-bladed sword. "We will go no further." "I don't think so," Wilson protested, crossing his arms. "How would we explain what we are doing to the Tri-Guardians when they show up?" "You're right," Alana agreed with a confident nod. "I just need one moment more though, and I'll be satisfied." She pushed past Wilson and Joel and leaned forward. Straining her eyes to focus her telescopic vision, she excitedly remarked, "Oh, wow, y'all have got to see this. It's better than I could have ever imagined." Star expressed, "Oh, look at the dark side of the Earth. It glows with speckles of light." "When did that start happening? How long have you been away?" Joel asked her. Star shrugged. The rest of the group rushed past the ledge with Alana, where they too were amazed what their eyes beheld. Wilson, on the other hand, stayed behind. An eerie chill came over him, tilting his head up to take in the grand sight of the magnificent battle that continued to fill the gate's frame. He realized they were all in breach of the vow they made to willfully remain within the limit of heaven's gates. Quickly, Wilson moved to bring his friends back behind the limits again. "No, don't! Come back!" Wilson said as he reached out to them, but he realized too late that by doing so, he too was outside and shared a much better view with his friends. "Oh, wow," Alana shouted with excitement. "Wilson, don't you see? Everything is so much clearer from here." Then the others saw Wilson take a moment to focus his telescopic vision. They all leaned out on the ledge and peered out at the surface of the planet Earth. Wilson stood up and said, "All right, everyone, that's enough. Let's get back now." But before the last words sprang from his lips, the extravagant southern gate of heaven slammed shut behind them, and they found themselves trapped on the other side of it. The group of seven turned around with a start, and to their horror, they found they had become outcasts of their beloved heavenly home. Upon a small area of ground, an isolated coolness blew over the seven as they found themselves trapped between the great gate of heaven and the firmament barrier that separated it from the earth's realm. Feeling a sense of severance from the magnificent glory of the Lord, Fear gripped the hearts like never before, and they charged at the massive pearly gate and beat their fists upon it with all of their strength. The masses of demons swiftly descended upon them and chewed into their backs. Ignoring the demons' assault, the angels hammered their fists against the pearl surface more desperately. They pulled to open it, and some of the demons assisted them with this effort. The seven cried and pleaded for someone with authority to hear them and permit them back in. Finding the gate as solid and unmovable as it was, and locked with no way to re-enter, each of the seven became grief-stricken with guilt and sadness. Huddling together, they comforted one another for encouragement. Demons continued to scratch and tear into them, but the angels had no fight left within them. The demon influence quickly enveloped them and drew away their hope and faith as though they drank and slurped it up. The hope and faith of the angels, when unguarded, was like liquor to the demons and quickly intoxicated them. "We need to make a shield of our wings," Taylor told her companions. Large wings sprang from each of the angels and stretched out over the clustered together group. As the wings interlaced, they became an umbrella of protection over them. Passing through the pearl of the sealed southern gate came four gigantic sanctified figures, which were composed of haloed light. Beams of light from these divine individuals repelled the masses of demons away like great arms. From within the halo of light that enthralled them, a sound became discernible. It was the sound of music, and with the melody arose the singing voices of the cherubim. Their sweet vocals were innocent like children. "Holy, holy, holy is the Lord God Almighty, who was and is to come." They repeated this song over and over. The seven friends recognized this song. It was the song that went with and followed the seraphim. Realizing they were no longer under demon attack, the snuggled bunch cautiously relaxed their tense wings and parted the dome they had fashioned for themselves. That was when the eyes of the outcast angels beheld the distant outpouring of the heavenly host. It was as though the surrounding dark clouds had been punctured and they were bleeding golden treasures out their wound. The massive parade kept coming until the surrounding masses blocked out the four giant guardian seraphims from sight. The seven angelic friends were tired. Guilt weighed heavily upon each one of them for giving in to their curiosities and venturing out through the open gate. They believed they committed a great sin. Shivering in fear with the eyes of the multitude upon them, the seven friends pushed in close to one another for security and encouragement. From amongst the billions of heavenly spectators, the four living creatures emerged and approached the young, fearful angels. Each of these creatures had 4 faces, 6 wings, and moved together as though they were of one mind. Above each of the creatures was a large disc shape that appeared to be covered with eyes. Their prominent face was that of a man, and their other faces seemed to be part of a great headdress. The left side was the face of a lion, the right side was the face of an ox, and the top face was of an eagle. They wore garments of pure light, and their feet were like burnished bronze. These wondrous seraphim emanated the great authority that was granted to them under God. When they spoke all at once, and beyond them the song of the cherubim never ceased. Angels of God, servants of the mighty master of creation, spoke the seraphim from the base of the gate. Have strength and do not fear. At these words, the 7 friends were strengthened, replenished, and at ease. Don't feel guilty for what has transgressed, for it was preordained by our King of Kings. Rejoice, for you have been selected for a great task. This was both exciting and inspiring news for the 7 angelic friends. Long had they yearned for such a calling. It was to them an opportunity to serve their Lord and Master, whom they loved. Then the seraphim rose up high, and their mighty wings merely stretched out and high for this to happen. In place of the seraphim, the tri-guardians gallantly approached. These 3 giant archangels had wide golden wings that stood like swords from their backs. Each of these angels loomed over the 7. They were 3 stories high and smiled down at the group. The archangels at the center began to speak. You will all be assessed. One of you will be subdued by the enemy. Hold true to your faith and hold true to each other now, exclaimed the archangel to the left. Soar through the firmament of the earth. Follow the escort of your brethren, spoke the archangel on the right. At once, the three great archangels tentatively spoke, saying, the entire planet Earth will need you by the end. Thus the seven angels soared beyond the firmament under heaven and crossed to the realm of earthly stature. Each one of these chosen, inexperienced angels longed to discover firsthand what discoveries the world of Earth would yield. Laughing, they raced into the mysteries of Earth's shadows and secrets. Full of insatiable confidence, they expressed their carefree spirits of unchecked complacency. The lessons of life were destined to be learned through the experience. The negativity of our world was about to educate the seven angels in ways they won't expect.